Steve Spagnuolo set the record last night. His 4th Super Bowl championship. Steve Spagnuolo has now won more Super Bowls than any other defensive coordinator. It's his 3rd with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he won the Super Bowl 42 in 2008 as the defensive coordinator for that miracle New York Giants team that beat the Patriots. He started his career in 1981, Steve Spagnuolo. He weaved his way through college and the NFL. NFL Europe. Let me get that right. He finally got his full-time assistant job in the NFL for the first time in 1999, the same year Brock Purdy was born, with Andy Reid's Philadelphia Eagles on a staff that was really stacked with coaching talent, including defensive coordinator Jim Johnson and then defensive assistant, future DC, and now Bills head coach Sean McDermott. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles for 7 years. And then he went to the Giants as the defensive coordinator. And that's where he met Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. In that Super Bowl, Tom Brady and the Pats scored 2 touchdowns. One in the second quarter, one in the fourth quarter. Those were the only points that the greatest quarterback of all time scored against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. The Giants won the game 17-14, and Tom Brady was 29 of 48 for 266 yards and 1 touchdown. That's 60% and a decimal, 266 yards and 1 touchdown. Fast forward, 24-year-old Brock Purdy, 25 years after Steve Spagnuolo starts his NFL career, has very similar numbers to Tom Brady did in 2008. To Brady's 60%, Purdy was 60%. To Brady's 266 yards that day, Purdy was 255. To Brady's 1 passing touchdown, Purdy had 1 passing touchdown. After the game, Steve Spagnuolo said this: the zones, I think their wideouts and their quarterback are so good at their timing routes, and Brock Purdy is really good. He knew when we were in certain things, and he found seams. So one of the best defensive coordinators of all time, Steve Spagnuolo, came out of the game and said, we had to make a lot of adjustments during the game because, quote, Brock Purdy is really good. He knew when we were in certain things, and he found seams. Here's more of this article from Albert Breer. This is the MMQB, inside the Chiefs Super Bowl win up on Monday morning. The score stayed 10-3 because of how the defense was turning a quarter, thanks to a couple of adjustments by Chiefs wizard of a defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. He implemented them right around halftime. It was necessary to make changes, quite simply because Brock Purdy was better than Steve Spagnuolo may have anticipated coming in. In fact, Spagnuolo said that the pressure that the Chiefs ran on first down after the 49ers intercepted Patrick Mahomes to start the second half. So you remember, this was Jair Brown gets the pick at the 44-yard line. The 49ers take over. Leo Chenal comes on a blitz that forces Purdy to throw the ball away. Spagnuolo said they had not practiced that, but he believed enough in his guys that they would be able to execute it, and they did. So he came cooking things up. Hell of a job by him, and a hell of a job. Go back to what I just said Brandon Allen said. Those guys don't make mistakes. They're very smart. They know how to handle situations. He was cooking things up on the fly, and his guys were executing it because of the challenges that Brock Purdy was giving them. You know, I don't know if you're looking for positives right now, less than 24 hours after losing the Super Bowl, but I'd say that's a pretty significant positive if you're thinking about Brock Purdy and what comes next. You know, how does Brock Purdy get better? Well, first of all, he's got an off season as a starting quarterback for the first time in his career. Going into his 3rd year, he'll finally have an off season where he is the starting quarterback and he's healthy enough to try and evolve. I said on Sunday night, I think Kyle has to be open-minded to any feedback he gets from Brock about things that Brock might like, things that Brock might want to do that are different than just the traditional things in Kyle's offense. John was talking about it. His idea being you got to get Purdy on the move, get him out of the pocket a little bit in non-play action situations. But I'll talk about this with Jeff Schwartz. how much of the busted protection on 3rd down and 4 in overtime for the 49ers when Chris Jones came unblocked, how much of that is the responsibility of the quarterback to make sure he gets right? This experience has to be a great one for Brock. And for all of you who have suffered through many losses, and for Kyle Shanahan, who's got just another scar to put next to his other scars, this is a new one for Brock Purdy. This is a new experience for him. He's not been in the Super Bowl before. I thought he handled himself really well. Steve Spagnuolo thought he handled himself really well. And Steve Spagnuolo threw everything at him. He threw the whole package at Brock Purdy and then had to make more things on the fly. Steve Spagnuolo is like when you watch those cooking shows. I don't know about you, but I watch him be like, all right, mystery ingredient. Like, all right, what's the mystery ingredient? It's like foot of a falcon. Okay. Any other mystery ingredients? Yeah, the lard of a buffalo. Okay, that seems probably a good, I don't know, it's probably a good ingredient. And then some vegetable from like the Azores that nobody's ever heard of. And then the chef, they're like 30 minutes on the clock, and the chef cooks up some dish that wins them, the championship. That's Spagnuolo. And every time I watch those shows, my wife Alyssa loves those shows. Every time I watch those shows, I'm like, how do these people do this? How do they come up with it? Well, they're the best. They're the experts. They're the geniuses. Spagnuolo, I think he's a genius. He's the most decorated defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL. The most decorated defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL. So I think all that bodes pretty well for Brock Purdy.